The story of the town of Ventis. Ventis is an interesting little town. It was created by a dross named Louis Ventisset. He and his kind fled a tropical jungle and their oppressors. They looked to the swamps to find a sanctuary. The dross struggled as they migrated, but they were determined to survive. Louis, being the kind-hearted man that he was, felt all the suffering of his people. After arriving in the swamp, people began to become terminally ill. It came down to about 12 people running the settlement at one point. They continued to work hard with no end or cure to the decay in sight. In an effort to heal the sick, Louis began exploring deeper into the swamps. Only he and a few others, including his young toddler daughter, Laurie, had not been stricken down with sickness. His wife and the mother to his child had already been claimed by the disease. Desperate to find a cure for his people, Louis furiously harvested herbs and plants to search for a cure. Suddenly, he heard a branch cracking behind him. He staggeringly turned around and, in surprise, fell on his back. In front of him stood an army. At the head, there were 3 people. Each of the 3 walked to Louis to introduce themselves. First came a pale dross carrying a massive glaive in one hand. Louis had never seen a dross this pale and this tall. With a loud, deep, almost beast-like voice he spoke. "I am Arios Paleblood, descendant of Sirota Paleblood, current Count of Skelenos and leader of the United Clans, born from the Book of Mortem under the Red Moon." Arios reached out to offer Louis a hand to help him up. Second came a small dross, fully clad in heavy armor carrying a massive shield. As the small one walked towards Louis, the ground shook. Louis thought that this person in his armor must weigh at least 600 pounds. From the gaps in his helmet came a deep, firm voice. "My name is Aiki of Dortal, descendant of Sirota Paleblood, general of the Steelborn and mayor of Dortal." The third person approached. Louis noticed he wore a golden bow, much larger than an average bow. With a kind and friendly voice, the person said, "My name is Sanadin Honeybrew, descendant of Sirota Paleblood, general of the Goldborn and mayor of Everbloom." Sanadin looked around the area and kindly asked Louis what he was doing in the territory of Skelenos. Not knowing where exactly in the swamp he was, Louis told the leaders that he and his people fled to the swamps from their oppressors and fell sick from the swamp and its vapors. The leaders looked at each other questioningly. As being bred, born, and trained in the swamp, they could not understand how one could become sick by the swamp. For them, the swamp was a source of life and joy. They wanted to see this with their own eyes. So, with Louis and their army, they marched to inspect the dross who had fallen ill. After looking at several of the sick dross, Arios, Sanadin, and Aiki looked at each other and nodded. Sanadin waved a soldier closer and whispered something in his ear. The soldier turned and promptly left the encampment. A short time later, he returned with a large golden chest. He opened it up and took out a weird purple-looking root. As a naturally curious man, Louis did not understand the meaning of their actions and asked what was going on. The leaders explained that Louis and his people were poisoned even before they entered the swamp. Normally, this poison would not by itself harm a person, but since Louis and his people moved to the swamp, the environment made the poison active. This is what was causing their condition to slowly deteriorate. They could not guess as to why Louis, his daughter, and a small few were not affected. Sanadin, seeing the ravages of the poison working against the Louis settlement, wanted to hand over the medicine to Louis. He was suddenly hindered by Arios. "We should not waste this expensive imported medicine on these people. We don't know them, and they invaded our territory." Upon hearing this, Louis panicked from the stress of seeing the cure right in front of his eyes, and at the same time slipping away. He fell on his knees and begged Arios for the cure. He pressed his forehead to the soil and told him he would do anything to save his people. They had struggled and fought for their lives to make it to the Skelenos lands, and he did not wish them to die now from some sneaky, underhanded poison. A smile appeared on Arios's face. He looked down at Louis, rammed his glaive in the ground, and threw the root in his lap. You said you were prepared to do anything? Then take my life." Louis looked at the root and the glaive. Not understanding the reasoning of Arios, he responded, But I am a healer, not a killer." Fiercely, Arios shouted, "Do it!" while unsheathing a dagger and pointing it at Louis. Visions of the past with his family and friends in good times and struggle flew through Louis's mind. He remembered his wife and thought of his child. He remembered the fight for freedom and this long trek out of the jungle. Not knowing if this was a trade, his life for the life of his people, he became resolute with his decision. Louis accepted that the moment the weapon struck the warrior in front of him, the soldiers in the army would likely cut him down. He also knew something that was more important to him, that those who were left of his people needed to live. Louis shouted to the soldiers that they were standing around them watching the scene play out. "If you need blood, so be it. I do this so that they may live." Louis wrapped his hands around the massive glaive and forcefully thrust it into Arios's chest, cleaving it right through him. Louis was numb. He was shocked at what he was witnessing. Arios stood in front of him still, smiling no less. Arios slowly pulled the glaive out of his own body, wincing from time to time. Arios laughed. "Nice try. Sadly, you can't kill people from the clans united under the Blood Moon. As a punishment for failing your task, you will have to surrender your people to us and work for us the rest of your life. Welcome to the county of Skelenos." While Arios shouted those last words, Louis realized that the soldiers had already begun treating his people. Tears of relief and joy welled up in his eyes as he thanked the lords. In the days after, many secrets about the county were revealed to Louis. The fact that the clans were losing their immortality and would need healers in the future. The fact that some of the clan members were forming bonds with mounts and needed stables and food for their animals. Louis thanked the Count and promised to use what he had learned about the plants of the swamp to found one of the best hospitals and academies in the region. In an effort to do his part in protecting his new clan, he needed to make sure the clan members would never die from any wounds they would get in the future. Recognizing the sincerity, ingenuity, and leadership skills of Louis-Francois Maurice Ventis, the lords agreed to allow for a fourth clan to join as an equal member in the Skelenos lands. In honor of people who were lost along the journey, and in the symbolism of family, family lost and family saved, the town of Ventis was so claimed and named. In keeping with the agreement, the town of Ventis began to train the best mounted warriors of the swamp. With this, the city of Ventis and the highborn mounted military clan was founded. Because while Louis was averse to bloodshed and violence, he knew that the people also cannot be unwilling to take arms. He dedicated his life to healing the clans and educating the people so that Ventis can work toward a better tomorrow for Skelenos. His daughter was raised as his apprentice and learned all the secrets of the swamp, including those passed to her father from Arios himself. After a time, the town was founded and functioning. The people were active and prosperous, and Louis in his bed with his daughter and second wife by his side said his final word to those he loved the most: thrive. With that, he was laid to rest, and the people of Ventis, by a clear majority, voted Laurie Marie Chantal Ventisette as the new mayor. She would, from that day forward, be known as Madame Ventisette, the mayor of Ventis.